Most people think that if they're in some debt, they'll be in debt for the rest of their lives, whether it's 30 or $50,000 of student loans or 600, $700,000 of house. But today we have an amazing guest, Kayla, who was one of my OG FPU members from when I started this business. And so we have her sharing her debt payoff story today to give you a little bit of encouragement in your financial journey to be financially free, to have financial peace. So, Kayla, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Hi, I'm Kayla Faust. Now I live in Coralville, Iowa. Originally, when I started, I was in Iowa City, Iowa, and I'm a clinical research coordinator at the University of Iowa. My husband is a IT engineer in Iowa City as well for a private company. We've been on our journey for a few years now. Started off very sparse, and now we are living much more comfortably thanks to much more financial peace.
I love that. So it was around 2023, right, that you all started your personal finance journey, like this debt payoff journey. Paint a picture of what life was like then, like roughly how much debt you were dealing with, ballpark income, doesn't have to be super specific, but like what pieces you were dealing with, and then we'll go from there and see where you're at today.
Yeah, so at the time I was making about 50,000. I think my husband was making maybe 70,000. And we had about $100,000 of student loan, combined student loan, and then we still had about $100,000 on our mortgage left. We had two car payments, which totaled about $15,000. Um, and then I had some medical bills from, I had had a brain aneurysm. And so left over from that, I still had about $20,000, I believe. And then we also had some credit card debt because of just all of that combined. I mean, from time to time, we ended up living off of our credit cards. And so, I mean, that also added another 10,000. I mean, it seemed like we were just buried in debt and just trying to survive check to check to just paying off each debt. Um, Trying to figure out how to just make sure that we didn't slip into collections and make sure we were paying our bills and basically just survive. Um, it was just absolutely awful. And that was when my brother offered me to have this course. And he said that he really just wanted to give me an opportunity. And if I took it, then he would be like so grateful if I would. And that if I didn't, then so be it. And so I did, and my husband did, and we committed to it, and we were there every single morning. And we were in an early class too, if I remember. I think it was like 7 a.m. Um, and so, I mean, we were so tired, but we did it every morning. And our class was a great class. We were very committed, and we um, worked really hard about it. And so I think we had like over $150,000 debt when we started. And then, I mean, through Teddy's incredible coaching, and our like budgeting process, we started to slowly um, realize, where we were spending, where our extra expenditures were, um, and how we could slowly cut some of those away right off the bat. Um, and so right off the bat, I mean, cut out several different subscription services.
Yeah, I was doing the math as you were outlining the debts you had. So yeah, about 260, 270,000 of total debt, and then taking out the mortgage, about yeah, 150, 150K in debt of non-mortgage debt. That's a lot, like to pay off, especially within the span of just a few years. Um, I'm so proud of like where y'all started and where you're at now, because of course we'll get into the debt freedom stuff. But what what kept you motivated through all of that, and like how did you even find that much money to pay off towards debt? Like, did you make huge sacrifices with your lifestyle? Like, what did that all look
Yeah,
like?
so we definitely did. We lived like we had, I mean, no money. And basically we didn't. I mean, the money that we had was already spent. Um, we had spent it ahead of time. And so everything that we earned went into paying debt. And so we started off by paying, like, we were making our minimum payments on everything, and any extra thing went into our lowest debt. So the one that had the least amount of debt on it. Yeah, and so I think the first thing that we paid off, which seemed so trivial at the time when you have like so much money in student loans and debt and everything, but I think the first thing we paid off was my Malibu. Um, which I was just like, it was like, why are we paying this off when we have so many, like, so much higher interest, other items and other things? But it's like, but we paid it off, and it was like, oh my gosh, we own this car. This is my car. And that was such a successful feeling. It's such a rewarding feeling that right off the bat, like, it was energizing. And all of the money that we had been using to pay off my car, we immediately rolled all of that into the next lowest balance debt. There wasn't any shifting around. It was all of that into the next lowest balance one. And so in addition to that, like I said, we had cut out a lot of like additional expenditures. We didn't eat out. We quickly paid that off and then lived very frugally and only used like the car that had like the highest fuel economy as much as possible. And then we biked a lot. And our city has free city buses. And so we started using a lot of public transportation when we could because that was free. And then we cut out subscriptions to TV. Even today, I don't think we have any. We'll occasionally get a subscription um, for like a month. And that's mostly just because we got out of the habit of it and we do so much more outdoor stuff now.
Yeah, I can see that. Y'all are out camping
Yeah,
today.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, and we've then, like, found that, like, if you invest in something that's, like, more long term and then the the payout is free. So instead of, like, I don't know, like, constantly, like, paying for subscriptions and stuff like that, we saved up and, like, we have a kayak now, and we go kayaking all the time. And so that's something that, like, we can take down to anywhere and do that for free and enjoy as a family. I would say we also joined another family and started buying in bulk at Costco. So we would shop with another family, split the cost of the membership and the cost of the items. And so, like, when you get the ketchup at Costco, it's always a 2-pack. And so we'd each get one ketchup. And so we'd buy items like that in bulk and be able to split the quantities of them. And we'd even like if you get like a box of brownies, it's like 2 things of brownies in one thing. So where you'd like just take a picture of like the instructions on the back. And so it's like simple things like that make it just that your money go that much further. And then my husband would go online and look for sales and like government websites for like bulk items that he could then resell online individually. I would also go on like Nextdoor and find items that people were just giving away for free that were in good condition and relist them on Marketplace. Like usually if they're listed for free is because like there's like a screw missing or something like that. It's like, well, okay, I can go in and replace the screw and then kind of repaint the item and then voila. And so it's like a $2 investment and then I made $25 off of a chair.
A lot of like creative problem solving and like different avenues that you found opportunities to not only save money but create income or create side income. Um, that's really encouraging because when a lot of people start on this journey, it's like, I don't want to, change my whole lifestyle. Like, I worked so hard for, the car I got, the home I got, all this stuff, and I don't want to give a lot of that up. But you showing us your journey of like trimming down that lifestyle and kind of reprioritizing where you're spending your money and where you're spending your time so that you can do, more outdoorsy things, spend intentional time with your family. I think that's such a powerful like benefit that not a lot of people really experience and they lose sight of, especially when life starts to get inflated. I'm curious, do you remember exactly how long it took you to pay off all your debt from when you started?
Not entirely. It was such a like it was such I mean, it's a gradual process.
You actually had texted me when you paid off the house and stuff, so I was looking for that text message and I found it. So it was April of last year that you texted me the house is paid off and you're debt free. So in the span of 2 years, yeah, from I think it was like February 2023 ish around that time, or maybe it was a little later, but within like 2 to 3 years, you got all of this debt paid off, which is fantastic. Like people, anyone who has like even 30 or 50K in student loans thinks it's going to take 15 to 20 years to pay this thing off, right? But you were saying you had 100K in student loans and you wiped all of that out.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
we
that's
we
impressive.
didn't do much of anything that wasn't just straight paying off our debt. Or I mean, people would invite us out. We'd be like, I mean, you're welcome to come and hang out at our house, or we could like do something. But I mean, if it wasn't free, I mean, we basically weren't doing it. Everything was thrift shopped. Everything was used that we could use. I used coupons for everything. We all of our extra cash went there. I had already pre-purchased ahead of time a Cricut machine, and any chance I would like be making shirts for people. Um, and so it's just like little things here and there. Even now, like I can't help but like on the side whenever I have like the opportunity, I still like find little things where it's like, well, now that I have this. And so like one of the things that came up during that period was one of my friends getting married, and she was like, I need like a backdrop for my wedding. And so for her wedding present, I was like, okay, well, I'll give you the backdrop for your wedding. And then afterwards, she's like, thanks. And she's like, but I don't need like the frame or anything. Well, this is an opportunity. And so now I'm in like the backdrop rental business.
Cool. Little like accidental side business. I like
Yeah.
that.
And then now just in our new home, because we've moved now. And now in our new home, like I just looked out into my backyard before I left, and my wildflower daisies that we had planted have just taken over. Like, while I love them, they're so just rampant in our yard that they're spreading into my neighbor's yard. And so I was like, well, I could just like, you know, cut them, or I could post them on, a wedding page because those are like super popular this time of year and say, hey, does any brides need any fresh daisies for their weddings? And I've gotten like 6 hits already. So instead of just like cutting some daisies and tossing them or putting them around my house, I'm probably going to make about $200 on daisy sales.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah, these opportunities just keep coming up for you, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's just like once you start seeing the opportunities and start taking them, like you'll start seeing them more and more. It's almost like you develop an eye for it, where you're like, oh, there's some money in that. When opportunity comes knocking, um, and then like making it so it's like, well, I'm not going to go out and cut all those daisies and just throw them away, or do something like somebody else can come and cut them and then pay me. Like that sounds like a much better option.
So with this debt payoff story, I know you said what kind of kicked it off was that initial Financial Peace University class. For those of you who are watching, if you don't know what Financial Peace University is, it's a 9-week course through the Ramsey Network. Like they made personal finance content to make it digestible and all that stuff. And that's actually what got me started in this financial coaching business. So I was leading those financial peace classes. Um, Kayla, was there anything that was like particularly meaningful at that time that really gave you hope that you can pay off this debt and like live this new life that you have now?
Seeing like some of the success stories, as well as like seeing that effect of like the snowballing of like the debt payoff and how you can. I didn't really necessarily buy into the paying off the lowest balance debt first until I started doing it. And like that reward cycle in the brain, and this is the scientist in me now speaking too, that reward cycle in the brain kicks in as well. And that I think is a really important component of that thing of the snowball debt payoff cycle that isn't necessarily talked about enough compared to like paying off your highest like um, interest rate debt first. Because when you add that reward component, it really intensifies that drive to want to do more. And so as you then pay off another debt and snowball all of that into another one, because then all of a sudden you're paying just full premium. All of that snowballed debt interest from the previous debt that you paid off that you're now putting into the next debt each month is all going to premium. And so that debt goes down so much faster. And you watch that debt just drop. And then you see it dropping so much faster. And so then that inspires you because you're seeing that drop faster than your first debt dropped. Because your first debt, you were paying your minimum payments and then whatever you could afford throw towards it a little bit extra. But now you're throwing extra towards the second one every single month. And it's like it's a thrill. It's like an adrenaline rush almost. And so then you see that dropping. And then you combine once that one drops, then you have two of those onto the next one. And so it just keeps snowballing. And that snowball causes like it's such a thrill to see that. And so that was in and of itself was very hopeful and driving force. We kept a like data visualization of that as it was going in our on our computer so that we could literally watch it fall. You know, if you're doing like a fundraiser, you can watch it grow. We watched ours fall. And it was in different like stacks type thing. So we could watch it fall. And they were falling fast and fast and fast, 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 fast. So some of them were falling slow over here, but some of them were falling fast, and it was fun.
One of the pillars that I stand on for all things financial coaching is that there's definitely like a finance bro way to go about, paying off debt, doing like the mathematically quickest way to pay off the debt. But with my experience in like mental health and all this stuff, I find that the debt payoff plan people actually stick to is the one that they stick to. Like the one that not necessarily just looks best on paper, but where even if it's not perfect, not the perfect plan, the point is if you keep doing it, it'll work. And so with that debt snowball method, and you're getting those early wins, and then the next wins keep coming faster and faster, that positive feedback loop is what keeps people so motivated and believing that not just like you hear these debt payoff stories, but then you see it in real time in your own journey. So, I mean, this podcast that we're doing today, I think, will inspire so many people. Kind of like you were saying, Kayla, in FPU and just in the circles and communities you are around, that those stories can be that like motivation or just that head start, that little push that people need to get started and then start experiencing some of those wins. So I really appreciate you sharing that and just outlining what that has looked like in your relationship and in your life. I know you said you're married and you have a family. How does that factored in with this process? Did you guys have money fights throughout this process, or even starting, or were you all on the same page? Did your kids hate you because you were giving up all these things? Like, what did that look like?
Luckily, um, my daughter is only 6 now, so at the time she was pretty young and didn't really notice the difference that, she wasn't getting name brand clothes and stuff like that. She didn't care. She was dressed, she was having fun. And so she didn't really notice anything. As far as my husband and I, we were both on the same page just because we've been together since we were in high school. And so by and so that was in 2008. And so by 2023, when we had hit that point, we were more than ready to be like out of debt. And so we were on the same page. We didn't really like have money fights about it so much as like disagreements about like times when we would sit down and talk about the budget. Would be like the hardest thing would be like, okay, we have to talk about the budget. And like finding times like just because we'd be so busy. But other than that, like and that was just because we were so like committed to it where it's like we need to make sure we stay to this. And it came from both sides. Because of the family component, there's also like positives, whereas like we both ended up receiving um I received a promotion during that period and a raise, and he also received a raise during that period, which also contributed to us being able to pay off additional debt. So during that period, he ended up going up to about $90,000 a year, and I'm at like 57. I'm making a little bit more. He's making significantly more.
Yeah, I like, especially with couples who are on the same page with their finances, it really does create like a two plus two equals five scenario where that synergy is you guys can make progress on your own, but doing it together like that, supporting one another, I think is just a really impactful benefit of having a partner to do this alongside, or even for the singles out there, having an accountability buddy or someone you're doing life with, uh, this payoff journey, or saving all this stuff. That there's so much power in that community and support aspect of staying motivated and just like continually growing. One thing I wanted to ask you about, now that you're in a much better financial place, are there any non-financial wins and benefits that you've been able to experience, or new things that you've been able to try just to that you haven't been able to do before?
Just the freedom of knowing that we've got a little bit of like we've got that security, financial security in our back pocket that like if something were to happen like with my job, like if I became unhappy with it or something like that, I would have the like security to like look for a new job, or if I lost my job that I would not have to be in a panic right now. Um whereas like what is that statistic that 1 in 2 Americans are one paycheck away from losing their homes? I mean, that that terrifies me. And so like that gives me peace of mind, and then it allows me because I always feel that you should pay that forward, and so I just do a ton of volunteering as now, um because I feel like I have that freedom that I don't have to constantly be like nose to the ground trying to like find ways to like just kind of make some extra money on the side.
You didn't mention it during this podcast, but something I was like laughing pretty hard about when you text me about the being debt free was that you now have the freedom to go, I think it was participate in a protest, and that you wouldn't have to worry because your husband has bail money
Yeah.
for you. Like if you got arrested, like you have money. And what I think is so powerful about this, so whenever I think about debt, that any debt we have is risk, and when we don't have debt, we ourselves can take different risks that we didn't before. So having that savings and that like stability foundation under you, like you can risk leaving your job for something better. You can risk starting a business, going to a protest, just all these different things that you can do now with confidence, that even if it doesn't pay off and you lose whatever you risked, like you still have this foundation under you that you can rely on. I think it's just one of those things that's so hard to articulate and like convey to someone else, because you really have to experience that kind of freedom to like appreciate that. So I appreciate you sharing all the wins and benefits from this payoff journey, and just like where you're at now, and bringing to a close some of the podcast questions. What's next in your financial journey? Like,
So we are now just working on our retirement and working on a savings for our child's future. We've got our like, fun toy that we had wanted for forever. And we have like our house that we're very happy in. And so now it's just about saving for like the future and enjoying that.
Saving for the future, but also building that generational wealth with your daughter. All right, last question I have for you. For the person out there who is in debt, struggling, they don't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, what's your one piece of encouragement or one piece of advice you would give them?
I wouldn't trust in anything to pay off anything for you. You can always sign up for any programs and everything, but keep paying on your loans as much as you can. Continue working it. Like, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. But if you stick to it, you will get through it. Then it's worth it. It's so worth it. There's no fun, fancy words of advice that I can really give, I don't think, because it's like when people ask parents for the words of advice for parenthood, it's like there's no perfect way. There's no secret advice of like sneaking out of it or getting around it, but you can do it. And once you get through it, it's worth it and it's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like realistic expectations of what this journey looks like is that there aren't really any shortcuts. I mean, there are some things that may help here and there, but to depend on someone else to get you out of your debt or financial situation is there's not a lot of hope in that. You who's listening has the power to change your life, and you have control over your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, and by taking a step today in that direction for yourself and taking that ownership, there's so much you can do with that kind of autonomy and control. So Kayla, I really appreciate you taking the time out of this, gorgeous camping trip you're on to have a conversation with me and for you who's watching, just to bring hope back into personal finances for a lot of Gen Z and millennials out there who are just like, you know what, I'm just not ever going to pay off my debt, but there is hope. If you want some personal finance resources that will actually transform your life, go ahead and click the link below for the spending detox. But thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you have a debt highlight story that you would like to share, reach out to me and I'd love to have you on. So again, thank you, Kayla, for sharing your inspiring story. And we will see all you in the next one.